Hey gang, and welcome back. Just a reminder, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com. You'll get 10% off orders over $10 and help with the channel at the same time. Welcome back. Thank you all for joining me, and this week we have another EDH game lined up. This week I'm playing my Zedruu deck, and I keep a hand with Flooded Strand, Cyclonic Rift, Paradox Haze, Gaia Reach Sanitarium, Leyline of Anticipation, Chromatic Lantern, and Rugged Prairie. Matt is playing his new Edgar Markov deck, and he keeps a hand with a Mountain, 2 Swamps, Windscarred Crags, Read the Bones, and Diabolic Tutor. Sean is playing his newly made Sek'Kuar deck, and he keeps a hand with Badlands, Mountain, Command Tower, Cultivate, Decree of Pain, Zealous Conscripts, and Toxic Deluge. Lastly, Pat is playing his Gisela deck and keeps a hand with Plains, Command Tower, Basalt Monolith, Tenza Goda's Maul, Flameblade Angel, Angelic Purge, and Prison Term. Pat wins the die roll and starts us off. Technically though, before the game starts, I get to put Leyline of Anticipation onto the field. Pat plays Command Tower for his first land and drops land tax. I play and crack Flooded Strand, taking 1 and finding Volcanic Island. Sean plays a Badlands and passes to Matt. Matt plays Windscarred Crag and gains 1 life before passing to Pat. Pat plays a Plains and passes to me. I play Rugged Prairies and pass. Sean plays a Mountain and passes turn. Matt plays a Swamp and casts Orzhov's Signet. Pat misses his land drop unfortunately, and at the end of his turn, I flash in Toper Orb. I then play Gaia Reach Sanitarium during my turn, and I pass to Sean. Sean plays Command Tower and casts Cultivate, finding a forest for the field and a swamp to his hand. Matt also plays Command Tower and casts Read the Bones, keeping 1 on top and putting 1 on the bottom. He then loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. Pat's upkeep has him able to use the land tax enchantment, and he finds 3 basics and puts them into his hand. Pat then plays a Mountain and casts Basalt Monolith before passing. At the end of Pat's turn, I flash in Chromatic Lantern. Have I mentioned that I love Leyline of Anticipation? For my turn, I play Serra's Sanctum for my land drop, and I pass to Sean. Sean drops a Swamp and casts Phyrexian Altar, and with nothing else, passes to Matt. Matt plays a Swamp and casts Vampire Cutthroat, which triggers Edgar Markov, giving Matt a Vampire token. Matt then drops Urza's Incubator, naming vampires, and passes turn. Pat plays a Mountain for his turn, and he casts his General, Gisela, before passing to me. At the end of Pat's turn, or as I like to think of it as an extension of my turn, I cast Zedruu and Expedition Map. I play an Island for my turn, and I pass to Sean. Sean plays a Swamp and casts Gruul Signet. Sean then casts Toxic Deluge, where X is 5, and wipes the board. Matt plays a Swamp and casts Well of Lost Dreams. With nothing else, Matt passes. On Pat's upkeep, he uses land tax once again to find 2 basics. Pat then plays a Plains and casts his own copy of Urza's Incubator, naming Angels. Pat then casts Firemane Avenger and passes turn. At the end of Pat's turn, I flash in Paradox Haze and activate Gaia Reach Sanitarium, allowing us all to draw a card and then discard a card. For my turn, during my first main phase, I cast Greater Oromancy and pass to Sean. Sean plays a Swamp and paying 2 life, casts Birthing Pod. He then casts his General and passes to Matt. Matt plays Exotic Orchard for his turn and casts Diabolic Tutor to tutor for a card and put it into his hand. Pat uses his land tax trigger to find 1 basic and starts his turn. Pat plays a Mountain and casts Angelic Purge to exile my Greater Oromancy, sacrificing his land tax. Pat then casts Tenza Goda's Maul and passes. At the end of his turn, I cast Aura of Silence and sacrifice the map to find Mistveil Plains. For my turn, I play Mistveil Plains and pass to Sean. Sean plays a Mountain and casts Zealous Conscript. He doesn't get the Enter the Battlefield trigger, but he does sacrifice the human to find a 6-drop thanks to Birthing Pod. Sean finds Harvester of Souls and casts Mind Stone before passing turn. Matt plays Boros Guildgate and casts Falconwrath Noble, which triggers Edgar Markov, giving him another vampire token. Matt then asks me to, in good faith, destroy something with Aura of Silence so he can cast a spell. I take out Pat's Incubator, and Matt casts Sanguine Bond before passing. Pat plays a Plains and drops Nahiri the Harbinger. He downticks the Walker to exile Matt's Sanguine Bond, and Pat then equips the Maul into his Angel and passes turn. At the end of Pat's turn, I flash in Zedruu. At the end of my first upkeep, I activate Zedruu's ability, donating away my Toper Orb to Pat. On my second upkeep, I gain 1 life and draw a card before drawing in my draw step. I then play Maze of Ith as my land and pass to Sean. Sean has no land for turn and he moves to combat. Sean slings the Harvester at Nahiri and Pat lets his Planeswalker die. During his second main phase, Sean casts Decree of Pain. Sean draws 2 cards with the Harvester and then another 6 thanks to Decree of Pain. Sean also gets a 3/1 Graveborn thanks to his General. For Matt's turn, having lost his creatures twice to Sean's board wipes, Matt brings out Big Daddy Edgar Markov and swings him at Sean. Edgar Markov triggers on attack and gives himself a +1/+1 counter, and Sean takes 5. For Pat's turn, he plays a Plains and passes. I cast Idyllic Tutor at the end of Pat's turn, finding Keranos. On my first upkeep, I flash in Keranos. Drawing the first card for my turn, I reveal a basic plains and then draw again. I then play the plains and pass to Sean. Sean recasts Sek'Kuar and passes turn. Matt casts Viscera Seer, which Edgar approves of, granting Matt another vampire token. Matt follows up with the other half of everyone's favorite black combo, Exquisite Blood, and moving to combat, swings Edgar at Pat. Edgar Markov triggers and puts a counter on all the vampires, and Pat responds by casting Deflecting Palm, forcing Edgar to deal 6 damage to Matt. At the end of Matt's turn, Pat untaps his Basalt Monolith. Pat plays Forgotten Cave and taps a ton of mana to recast Gisela. On my draw step, I reveal Wrath of God, which lets me deal 3 damage thanks to Keranos. I decide to deal 3 to Sean after he makes it clear that he will mess up my stuff if I target Sek'Kuar. Matt gains 3 life with the Exquisite Blood trigger and pays 2 to draw with the Well of Lost Dreams. And I pass my turn. Sean casts Word of Seizing during his first main phase, stealing Matt's Edgar Markov. Sean then sacrifices him to the Birthing Pod, and Sek'Kuar gives him another token. Sean finds Sheoldred and passes turn. On Matt's upkeep, he sacrifices his vampire token to the Sheoldred trigger. During his first main phase, Matt casts Drana, which gives him another vampire from Edgar Markov. Matt casts Utter End, targeting the Sheoldred, but Sean sacrifices the Praetor to Phyrexian Altar, which is kinda meta, I think, to save her. Moving to combat, Matt swings a Viscera Seer at me for 2, which causes Exquisite Blood to give him 2 life, and he pays 2 more to draw 2 cards with the Well. Pat equips the Maul onto Gisela during his first main phase, and moving to combat, swings the Angel at Sean. Sean responds by Chaos Orbing Gisela, and Pat reveals Anya, Merciless Angel. Pat then equips the Maul into his new angel and casts Fiery Confluence, choosing to destroy 2 artifacts and deal 1 damage to each creature. Pat targets Sean's Birthing Pod and Phyrexian Altar, and it also kills all of Sean's tokens, and Matt sacrifices his token to Scry. At the end of Pat's turn, I activate Gyreach Sanitarium, forcing everyone to draw and discard a card. For my turn, I draw, revealing a land, and draw another card. I play Glacial Fortress and cast Academy Rector during my first main phase. With nothing else, I pass to Sean. Sean plays a Verdant Catacomb for his land for turn, and cracks it to find Taiga. Matt also gains 1 life. Sean then casts Wildest Dreams to return Phyrexian Altar and Chaos Orb to his hand. Sean recasts the altar and passes turn. Matt drops Kabura Crossroads for his land for turn and gains 2 life. He then pays 2 to draw 2 from the well, and Matt casts Anointed Procession. At the end of Matt's turn, Pat untaps his Basalt Monolith. On Pat's turn, he recasts Gisela and moves to combat. He swings Anya at Sean, and Sean responds with his newly returned Chaos Warp. Now let us watch Sean's almost sweet flip onto Pat's library. Unfortunately he misses, but Pat reveals Darksteel Ingot. Moving to his second main phase, Pat equips the Maul into Gisela. At the end of Pat's turn, I flash in Treachery to steal his general. I then activate Gyreach Sanitarium, forcing us all to draw and discard. On my draw, I reveal Nahiri, which means Keranos lets me do 3 damage, which will be doubled to 6 thanks to Gisela. I deal 6 to Pat, and Matt gains 6 life. I then play and crack Arid Mesa, finding a Tundra, which gives Matt another life. Moving to combat, which is something I rarely say when playing my Zedruu deck, I swing Pat's general at him for 16 and Keranos at Sean for 12. Matt gains 28 life, which immediately makes me aware of a huge misplay on my part, and in my second main phase, I cast Nahiri to exile the Exquisite Blood. Matt has now assembled his combo, albeit in exile, and I pass to Sean. Sean casts Perforos for his turn, and casts Damnation to wipe the board. Matt responds by scrying the top card to the bottom, and I get to exile Academy Rector to find and put Humility into play. Sean then abrupt decays my Topra Orb that Pat controls, and passes to Matt, giving him permission to win this game. Matt plays Bloodfell Caves to gain 1 life, and pays 1 to draw a card with the Well. Matt then casts Bloodlord of Vazgoth, getting 2 vampire tokens for the price of 1. Matt then casts Aetherflux Reservoir, and makes me regret every choice I've made this game. He pays 50 life to deal 50 damage to me, killing me. Matt then plays Tithe Drinker, who comes into play with 3 counters thanks to the Bloodlord, and gains a further 2 tokens. He passes to Pat, but not before Sean gives him approval for his turn. Pat plays Lightning Greaves, and follows up with Thalia Heretic Cathar. Pat puts the boots onto Thalia, and passes to Sean. Sean plays a Forest for his turn, and plays Sadistic Hypnotist, dealing 2 to Pat and Matt. Sean then casts Pawn of Ulamog, dealing another 2, and Smothering Abomination, dealing a further 2. Sean then sacrifices the Abomination to the altar, gaining a black mana, and the pawn creates a token which deals another 2 damage to Pat and Matt. Also, Sean gets to draw a card. Sean then sacrifices the Hypnotist to itself to force Matt to discard 2 cards, which allows the pawn to create another spawn and deals another 2 damage. In response to the second Perforos trigger, Pat tries to kill the pawn with Warleader's Helix, but Sean sacrifices it with the altar to create a green mana. Sean gets another token and deals 2 more damage. Sean then sacrifices 2 of the spawns for 2 colorless mana, and casts Beast Within on his token to create another 3/3 Beast token, dealing 2 more damage. With nothing else, he passes to Matt. Matt plays Rakdos Guildgate for his turn, and casts Edgar Markov, gaining 1 life and paying 1 mana to draw a card. Matt then responds to the Extort trigger, paying 1 to drain Pat and Sean for 1 each, and gains 2. With enough damage on the board to kill Sean, Pat knows when he's beat and scoops it up to Matt. Game review time. My goodness, Leyline of Anticipation really changes how I play Zedruu. It's incredible how Flash gives cards so much more potential when you can do it at instant speed as opposed to sorcery. It doesn't really excuse my misplay, and not having cast Nahiri in my first main phase to get rid of Exquisite Blood was a huge oversight on my part. I mean, let's face it cost me the game basically. Pat's deck was really set back, having had to recast his general 3 times, and even with the reducers he really was starved for mana. His deck was very much an Angel Tribal deck, which is a lot of fun, but they're very expensive. There's not much I can say about Matt's Edgar Markov deck that doesn't really show up in this video. It gains a lot of life, it works really well by casting even low costing vampires to really spread your board out wide, and the turn that Edgar Markov comes down is able to swing with a field full of vampires, people are gonna die. I know I said earlier in my other videos that Anala and Kess were probably my favorite commanders from the sets, but boy does Edgar Markov do a lot of work for any vampire tribal deck. Sean's Sek'Kuar deck was based around the theory of stealing other people's creatures and stuff and sacrificing them for value. Unfortunately, Sean wasn't able to do very much of that, and he didn't really enjoy the deck in the end. Which I have to say is a bit of a shame, because his last sequence of plays were pretty brutal, and I really thought he was about to run away with the game with Perforos and all of the tokens he was making. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also find me on Twitter at MTGMudsta, at Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in part by support from my Patreons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below or in the About section. As always, thank you guys for watching, and please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more.